Logan Public Finance. January 5th, 2023.
President Wilma Roberts, Vice President Lisa Weems, Director Chinasa Etremwa, here. Director Julio Gonzalez Altamirano, Director Keisha Prince, here. Director Jan Wenning, here.
Any citizen communication? Yes, sir. They do. Yeah, you're making this. Baltimore Railroad Foundation Communities.
I thought I'd take the opportunity just to share where we're at. We're really excited and grateful to be selected to buy Rosemont. And I thought it'd be helpful just to have a conversation because there's a lot of work ahead to get this transaction closed. We have a meeting this afternoon with Patrick and Cliff to start working on the contract, purchase contract. Let me just sort of walk through the timeline. If you have questions, let me know. It's going to take some weeks. Hopefully by the end of January, we'll have a contract in place. It's a legal document and there'll be a lot of stuff to go through to get that. What we need and have proposed is pretty standard 60-day due diligence and 30 days to close. So contrary to the media reports, the property is not sold. We haven't closed on it yet. We're getting ready to start diving into inspections and a long checklist of due diligence items even before the contract is signed. So you take advantage of that 60 days, February and March, to get all the questions answered. It's not just the physical due diligence of walking all the units, inspecting everything, getting contractors out there, but also addressing title issues, lien issues. You have obligations to third parties, and that's going to take some time to get those sorted out, and that can all happen concurrently. If everything stays on track, then April is really all of the attorneys, your attorneys, ours, and any lenders and finance partners having calls to get everything ready to close. Best case scenario, end of April, early May, we're closed and we own Rosemont. And you don't know this. I just thought it'd be helpful to kind of walk through what that timeline looks like. I am concerned about the due diligence piece, the obligations that strategic owes to other parties. And I know that that's something that the $36 million that we've offered is the best that I think we could afford to pay for the property. We do want to understand and know what the obligations are to other parties. And we're a team. We're in this. We all have the same goal. Residents, strategic, and we should use. Stop there. And I am happy to answer any questions. I think that it makes the most sense to, I'm grateful that Capstone is still managing the property versus not managing at all, or not having an absence of a management. We're talking 4 months that we've got to muddle through here before this closes. And so I just wanted to be as clear as I can be. I don't think it makes sense to try to find an interim manager. We can't step in and manage the property until we finish. That's not a great situation, but I think we have to figure out how do we make the best of that. We need to work side by side with Capstone as much as we can over the next 4 months, so that we are in a position to take over management from them as smoothly as we can. So I wanted to be clear about that we need to work with them the best that we can to get this closed.
Questions? Any additional comments?
I think that's it for now. I realize the board meetings are a very formal setting, but I wanted to, there's a lot we gotta solve and work together on it. So I'm available. I'll work very closely with staff to try to address issues, stay in touch with resident leadership. We look forward to coming to the next meeting and
The only concern. Go ahead. You.
Okay. You mentioned wanting to make things work with Capstone between now and the finish line. Have you got in mind a certain kind of communication or you got, you might have it in place?
yeah, we have not met with the Capstone folks other than, walking the property and some email back and forth, but so I don't know the answer to that yet.
Well, the vice president of Capstone's right behind you, so.
Oh, awesome.
We're gonna take some information and you and I can make sure,
Yeah.
my first row you on that, so possible do whatever. I think this is.
The other question I would have, is there any expedited, any way you can expedite the process, other than 5 minutes? We started this thing back in September, October, now we're talking about May.
We'll move as quick as we can.
Or you-
It's a big property.
You're flexible in that area.
What's not flexible is that we can't short circuit
Yeah.
due diligence. Like, we have to walk every unit with a team and really understand the condition of each unit, each building, and the whole property. That's the only responsible thing to do, and that takes time. I think you're gonna need more than a couple months to resolve the obligations and liens that you've got. You can't, if somebody came to you today with a power plant, you still need some months to.
Well, I understand that, but my concern is, they as opposed to, March, or something of that nature.
We'll see what we can do, but it's not realistic. For us, or
Thank you. Anyone else?
Shoshana?
Could Marisa testify first?
Sure, Marisa.
Marisa.
Marmita?
Zalidai. Yeah, Zalidai. I'm gonna give you interpret.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Marisa Zaldivar. He vivido en Roma por 5 años. Estoy aquí para hablarte de lo que me pasó durante el helado esta Navidad con mi departamento Sondoro West. En la gerencia cayó en más precauciones en una apartamento de beneficio.
Good morning, my name is Marisa Zaldivar. I have lived in Rosemont for 5 years. I'm here today to talk about Christmas, when my apartment was flooded 2 times because of management's failures to take precautions in vacant apartments in my building.
El primer día se inundó fue el 20 de diciembre cuando explotó un boiler de 15. el agua empezó a entrar por la sala y los baños y eventualmente hasta los recámaras por la parte de las cámaras nuevas de una cúmula y que acabo de explicar. Estos muebles eran nuevos, yo tuve que entrar después de la venta URI en el año 21.
The first day that it flooded was the 23rd of December, when a boiler exploded on the floor above mine. The water began to enter the living room and the bathroom, and eventually it arrived in my bedroom, and it wetted my bed and also a chest of drawers that I have. These were new furniture. I had to replace them because of the storm of Winter Uri in 2021.
Llamé a la línea de emergencia, pero no contestaron, tuve que limpiar con ayuda y usar botes para limpiar agua. Desde varias horas llegaron y ayudaron a secar. Me dijeron que otras tuberías en la propiedad se habían infectado y por eso no tenía aire para secar en mi departamento. Mi boiler también se fue y no estaba funcionando, así que me empezaron un calentón pequeño, esto era de los días más fríos.
Called the emergency line, but no one answered. I had to clean what I could, and I used containers to try to flush the water. After a number of hours, maintenance arrived and they helped in drying it. They told me that other pipes on the property had been damaged, and because of that, there weren't fans to dry my apartment. My boiler also was wetted and wasn't functioning. And so they lent me a very small heater, and this was during the coldest day.
Al siguiente día explotó otro boiler en otro piso del tercer apartamento y arriba de mi apartamento. Esta vez fue peor, todo se inundó de nuevo, el agua hasta salía por el techo. Llamé a la línea de emergencia, pero era el día 24 de diciembre y nadie contestaba. Mi vecina encontró a la patrulla de seguridad y fueron a ver la situación. Ellos se dieron cuenta cuánta agua salía por la luz en la cocina. Dijeron que eso era peligroso y llamaron a los bomberos y pudieron limpiar agua y sacar.
The next day, another boiler exploded on another floor above mine. This time it was worse. Everything flooded again, and the water entered through the ceiling. I called the emergency line, but it was the 24th of December and no one answered. My neighbor encountered a security person, and they went to see the situation. They realized that water was entering through a light in the kitchen. They said that this was very dangerous and called the firefighters, and the firefighters were able to clean the water and try.
No pude hablar en la oficina hasta el 26. Les dije que necesitaba los aires para secar porque todo estaba muy bien. Muchas de mis cosas personales fueron dañadas y tuve que tirar en la basura. Como dije anteriormente, esto ya me había pasado de muchas cosas otra vez y nadie se hizo responsable.
I wasn't able to speak with office until the 26th. I told them that I needed fans to be able to drive, but because everything was very wet. Many of my personal items were damaged, and I had to throw them in the garbage. Like I said before, this had happened to me in 2021. I lost many things and no responsibility.
Estoy pidiendo a la oficina que me muevan temporalmente a otro departamento que ha sido remodelado en el primer piso. Solo quiero estar ahí hasta que arreglen mi departamento bien, pero no quieren moverme. Luego que hicieron fue traer los aires. Tardaron 3 o 4 días. Yo pienso que no, porque es respuesta.
Also, I asked that the office move me temporarily to a vacant unit in the apartment that had been remodeled on the first floor. I just want to be there while they fix my apartment, but they didn't want to move me. The only thing that they did was bring fans to dry, but they waited 3 or 4 days to do that, so I think that mold has already begun to grow.
No quiero ir a un hotel porque la vez pasada fue una pesadilla. Solo quiero que no me quiero que se arregle. También creo que es justo que se den compensación por todos los daños que se tienen que hacer. En la oficina no me dan respuestas sobre por qué pueden ir a un cierto de la ayuda que ustedes aseguren que la oficina cumpla con su tiempo. Que contraten profesionales para renovar las paredes, darle humedad, que temporalmente no hagan un departamento vacío en ese edificio. Que paguen por reemplazar todos los aspectos personales que fueron dañados por el examen y la alfombra, que me den un crédito de renta y que paguen la experiencia en factura de luz.
I don't want to go to a hotel because last time it was a nightmare. I only want to move while they do the work in my apartment, and I want them to make the repairs fine. I also believe that it's fair to give me compensation for all of the expenses that I have. And in the office, they haven't given me a response of what they can do to help. For this reason, I want to ask the help of you all. Please, can you make sure that the office complies with the follow? That they hire professionals to remove the walls and to dry the humidity in the walls and the doors. That they temporarily move me to a vacant apartment in my building while repairs are made in my unit. That they pay me to replace my personal effects that were damaged, like my bed and my comforter, and that they give me a rent credit and pay me the difference in my light bill because my light bill went up because of the fans.
Yo pienso que todo esto pudo ser evitado, los derechos que habían dicho estaban casi vacíos, debían de haber copiado el agua y las unidades vacías me debían de responder más pronto antes que hubiera más daño. Yo no esperaba esto, ya emocional y solo pido algo justo. Gracias. Thank you very much.
I think that all of this could have been avoided. Management knew that the buildings were almost vacant. They should have dripped the water in the vacant units, and they should have responded more quickly when they knew there was damage. I don't want to have to happen. I wasn't expecting any additional costs, and I just want to be paid what's just. Thank you. And there's also a list of some of her damages.
Did you provide this?
The testimony, yeah, it's just in Spanish. That way I can give the Spanish.
Señor Salazar,
Señor,
una pregunta. Gracias por venir a ¿ha sometido una cifra específica a la administración sobre compensación? No. Eso no más quería saber si ya había una discusión sobre business. I just wanted to ask if she had some specific compensation.
Only thing is that for the minutes and Sarah, you could see if you get to where you want.
Yeah.
Or that you can either way work for.
Sure. Is it okay if I keep it? Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Any other questions? You next.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. My name is Shoshana Krieger. I'm with BASA as a project director. For letting me speak today, and thank you for the board who have done a tremendous amount of advocacy for residents at Rosemont. We're super excited that the sale is moving forward with Foundation Communities as a buyer, especially because Foundation Communities has agreed to all of the tenants. I just wanted to flag that during this time, when Capstone is still going to be managers, there are still a lot of problems with property. And there are some problems which need to be resolved before Foundation Communities take over. One particularly important one is the issue of conservice bills. As I'm sure y'all may remember, the Tenant Association of Boston has raised this before. We raised it with SHFC, and back in December 2021, tenants were receiving bills from a third-party utility service erroneously for while they were being relocated or while repairs were being made in their apartments. We had thought that this issue had been resolved around sometime last year, after the Tenants Association members filed informal complaints with the Public Utilities Commission, and the Public Utilities Commission complaints were found in the tenant's favor after no one responded on the Rosemont side. Tenants decided not to file formal complaints, which would have the effect of forcing compliance, because they had assurances from Capstone that the issue had been addressed, and it appeared it had on their bills. However, apparently it hasn't been addressed because now it's affecting people's credit, and the scores seem, or the billing seems somewhat varied on it. So we asked that Capstone take responsibility and the SHFC take responsibility and make sure that all of these charges are removed from tenants' accounts immediately, and that this happens before Foundation Communities takes over. And that we don't have to waste additional resources, both tenant time, advocate resources, and also SHFC resources to be fighting about this in public utilities commissions or in a legal process. It's just not worth additional resources when we need to be saving all the resources possible so we can make sure that this sale is through. So please address that issue. That is all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Diana Villanueva.
She's right there. Yeah, no, I'm seeing her.
I think that she may have been signing in the digital today. She is here,
Are you-
but
you want to speak there?
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. Hi, everyone. My name is Diana. I'm part of the Street Media Response. I just wanted, I heard from neighbors at Rosemont that their apartments were getting flooded, and I just feel like at this point, are they doing it on purpose? Because, for example, Marlisa's apartment, it's the only one out of 12 apartments in that building that she's the only one that lives in that building. So if they know that, then why don't they go to all the vacant units and put the water strip? I used to live in that building. I don't anymore. So I know my apartment is not perfect, which is on the 3rd floor, but I feel like it's a lot better than what hers is. So if she's able to move up there, why don't you do that? I don't know, are they doing this because they know they're gonna sell, so they don't want to take responsibility of it, which I don't think it's right. They should still take responsibility of all this. They're still part of the management until the Foundation Committee comes in. So that's gonna make it to where then when Foundation Committee comes in, they're gonna have even more problems than what they have now. And I've heard that the office closes whenever they want, or they go to lunch whenever they want, and then when they get closed, nobody can get a hold of them. That's another thing that they should talk to management about as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
I'm like,
Amy,
I just want to say, dealing with this lady's apartment, I know for a fact that the steering committee emailed you, Mr. Howard, before the winter with the blizzard or whatever we just had. They just simply emailed you. We asked you about the vacant apartments, and you reassured us that you just want to make sure that they go and drip the water so that no apartments could get flooded. And this lady apartment gotten flooded. I understand your job may not be the easiest job, but it's not easy for us to come back here every Thursday, keep flooding out our concerns and cares. I'm talking to you, Mr. Patrick. I appreciate you don't look everywhere. Your job is to micromanage. Well, a part of it to me is to micromanage. And if you know Capstone is not capable of doing exactly what you hired them to do, then I expect you to take the necessary steps to come out your office sometimes and come on the property and see what's going on. Because Diane is telling you what she heard, but we want to tell you what we know. The office closes often early since they heard that Capstone, since they heard that the property is being sold. She said it seems like it's being done purposely, but I'm telling you it's being done purposely. I'm asking you, sir, to have the heart, because it's like you're a repeat offender when it comes to Capstone, it comes to Rosemont. And I'm asking you to have a little bit of a heart to come out in these last little 4 or 5 months that you have left with Rosemont and show the tenants that you care and get some things in order. So when this man do take his position and take over Rosemont, his task won't be as hard as he's literally about to face, because I hope you know you're about to face some things. And it's not gonna be easy. And then the price that you did set aside, I want you to know that it's gonna be over that amount. So can you do us a favor for once? And come see about the tenants. That's what we will want the most, to see that you actually have a heart and care for us before you leave.
Good time. Thank you. Morning. Questions? Comments?
No, come on.
Okay, we move to the regular agenda. There is the election of officers, and we'll go with the president first. I'll ask if there's any nominations. Is there any nominations?
Yes.
Is
I would like to nominate
there any nominations? Is there any nomination?
one, I'm increasing.
Lisa Rain. There any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Last time. Hearing no other nominations, nomination is closed for 30 days. Well, we're open for a vote at this time. There is the officer that running for election, Lisa Rain, and Mr. Julio Gonzalez and Ronaldo.
No, sir, we just checked again, she is.
She just texted and said she had death in her family, and she's having trouble getting online and having some problems. So it basically, she said, I'm trying to join on Zoom, a lot's happening, my son, friend passed, and so on, and so she won't be able. You don't have to be present there, but you don't have to accept the nomination. Okay, hearing no further nomination. All those in favor of Ms. Green, raise your hand. Okay. All those in favor of Mr. Gonzalez, raise your hand. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez won the election. Okay. It's your ball game now.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. President, for your service this past year. I know that it was a challenging and difficult year. I know that we got through it and made some progress, and I appreciate the amount of time that you invested in the shepherding us through challenges. I also want to thank the Vice President for the record of screens, who is now with us here and who I intend to nominate to continue as Vice President. She served in a challenging environment as well, was the conscience and many of our votes, and reminded us of our commitment to tenants. I don't want to take up too much of our time. I do want to speak to what I think we will be able to accomplish this year by working together in an inclusive fashion. There is much left to do around Rosemont, as well as with our broader mission. And I think that there is a lot of repair to be done, both in how we engage the community, how we work with each other, and how we provide oversight, leadership, and support towards that. With that said, thank you for this vote of support. And thank you for looking forward to working together on all of the challenges that we face. I suspect that much like last year, There will be things that we cannot foresee that alter what we want to do. There will be new members one way or another. And I think we will be able to rise to the challenge of those unforeseen problems, as well as be an inclusive place for those new individuals that change. With that said, let's move to this election of the vice president. Any nominations? Any additional nominations besides the names? We must close nominations, and since there is no other nominations, Ms. Green's,
You have to ask about, well, the opportunity will be after, ask for 3 times. Specific.
are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Last time, any other nominations? Then I close nominations. Ms. Reeves is the only individual nominated. I spoke previously with her and she did want to continue serving as vice president. So even though she is not here with us, I welcome her to continue serving. And with that, we move to the next item of business with this committee assignments. I have a sheet here for all of you. These are the current committee assignments. Or roughly the current committee assignments. What I would like to do is to review the committees and talk a little bit about the process for everyone selecting the committee that we do. So the committees listed, which we will go through, are the ad hoc Rosemont committee. This was a committee that was specially formed ad hoc to tackle a set of specific operational issues. I don't envision continuing it. It is not part of my standing committee, but I offer it as for discussion in the sense of do we want to continue to have a Rosemont focused operation. The next set of committees that are our standing committee, and you have some very specific functions and something else. The real estate development committee oversees a broad set of issues around real estate development and real estate decisions. The governance and finance and administration committee, I think, will hopefully be a workforce this year for us on a variety of finance and administrative related matters. We have the HR committee. It is my goal that we have both a mid-year feedback session with the EVP, which I have already discussed with him. He is excited about, as well as our existing evaluation process in collaboration with Patsy. And so that will be something that committee works strongly on. We have the quality of life committee, which was chartered originally to, in some ways, help us both oversee quality of life at our developments and be the shepherd of the tenants' bill of rights. And we have the executive committee, which is set by election. What I would like to do is right now have a brief discussion about whether these committees are adequate. And then second, I would like you to fill out a survey that I will be sending you briefly around our 2023 work plan. And in that, you will identify serve. My goal is to make sure that everybody can serve as either one or their first or their second choice, so that everybody can contribute in the areas that they're excited about. I do want to make sure that everybody hears that compared to last year, governance, finance, and administration, and HR, I would envision having much more weight than in the past. I think real estate will continue to be in some ways a powerhouse for me. Quality of life, I will still do the tenants' bill of rights work and may have some additional pieces of work, but it might not be as busy. I'll give you a pro or a con. I personally do not view a need to continue the ad hoc committee of Rosemont as something that we will all be the analysts for. With that, would anybody like to discuss our current committee setup? Do we need additional committees? Do we want to delete committees?
It does make sense, given that it's a more future property, this will be the overturn should include the plan, but is there any parents who have?
It might, and tell me what would be its, what would you envision being the responsibility of the committee? In the transition committee?
You know, I think it's a question of, a changeover and ownership and facilitating communication with your auditor, and other incidents around management issues that might affect property values. But I don't know, if the discussion would really like to talk about, or if we have to.
So let me make the pro and the con, so that we can think about it just from hearing your suggestions. The pro is that then we have numbers that we know week in, week out, are working to make the transition go smoothly and fast. And they can be reporting back to us. The con is, there have to be members of that time, depending on week in, week out, how we're doing on this. The other con is there is a limited amount of staff. And so staff can only properly and deeply provide support to only so much work from us. And as we know, staff is split capacity, variety of other things to do. So the question is it worth it? Because one of the things I was trying to do in playing traffic compensation, we are asking for this much staffing with the position. So some of the work items we would do, say under governance and finance, kick out to the second half of the year, just so that the staff has enough time to be able to do that transition work correctly. So that's really it's not so much a con as a being realistic about the burden putting on staff so that they can do the job correctly of having additional week in, week out oversight by the transition. As you say, I think it's valuable. It's a question of are there other folks that would be interested in serving in the transition team, so to speak, that's spending the time.
Would that be?
Historically, strategic and Patrick's responsibility has been should have been about 30%, but it's been more like 95% of the work being done for strategic, 5% for the housing. So we have to balance that in a sense. And so the less we can, I agree with the less we put on staff, the better it would be, especially with all the other stuff that's going on. And housing authority needs assistance and needs monitoring also. So that's what it said. So we would split that and make it more equitable. It may be 40%, but ideally the contract is 30. That's what I am. So, and do what we have to do to get it done. Well, the biggest thing is due diligence and the attorneys.
Right.
So get those two working.
It'll be similar. Okay. I'm good with
Anybody else want to make a case for an additional committee? Okay. Hearing none, then what you are going to get is a survey from me with a variety of questions around our work plan for the year. One of the questions is what committees you want to serve on. And in there, I'm asking that you rank 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, or only this one, or please don't bother me. Just be honest about what you want to work on. If it doesn't work, if there's just no way that you want to serve on a committee, that's fine as well. We do have one, we have to anticipate one person joining us, and I will take that into our calculations. But my goal is that you get to work on what you find is meaningful, and I will try and balance that out. I will bring to the February meeting my suggested appointments. There's a good chance that everybody's priorities will work out. And then using the powers now vested in me, if everybody, I can make everybody happy with the priority without having to bring it to the meeting for discussion and a resolution to give it more formal weight, then I will just do it so we can explore it. That's that for kind of how we're gonna do the committee assignments. Our next item is a Rosemont update, but while we are still in the regular agenda, 4B, I do want to say two things that are gonna happen. I'm gonna send you as I said, a survey for the committee, but it is wrapped in some simple questions about the work plan for 23. This includes how long you want this meeting to be, how much time you have to give us this year, the accomplishments you want to personally send you this year, what committees you want to be on. Please do respond to that. That will be helpful. If you do not respond, I will get my best for public statements. And number two, you're going to get a link to the new business tracker or business tracker, which is my real-time tracker of all of the items raised. I do have some copies of the current state of that here. Will you share your with you have one?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to send you a link to the real-time tracker so that you always have a sense of kind of things that I'm making note of people have raised. Today we heard a new item that should be considered for new business, which is the cog service bills potentially. I'm going to put it on the tracker. It doesn't mean we're going to take action. And with that said, we will move to item number C under for Rosemont update.
Hey, Mr. Chair, so I thought we'd maybe talk about where we are as Mr. Moreau has alluded to. We are meeting with myself and our attorney will be meeting and others meeting with Mr. Moreau this afternoon to talk about due diligence items and the like. There are outstanding debts, obviously, that need to be addressed, and I'm hoping that one of the committees, the standing, will be able to assist us as we brainstorm our approach to ameliorating that debt. So the sooner that happens, the better we will be as it relates to that. We are working though on trying to get a good handle on those liens that are actually outstanding, and we've been making contact with those individuals. In most cases, there is opportunity for negotiation as it relates to that being owed, but I would like actually to be able to that group committee, whatever committee that is, speak about more specifically about way forward as it relates to that. We did complete the sale of City View at the park, so we do get some additional resources for the end of the year. In December, 2.6 million was the exact number figure, so that she can go toward actually addressing that. So myself, finance director, and the committee, Richard, will be able to talk about that. So if you would like, we can talk about the situation that just occurred with the freeze. However detailed or summarizing you want me to do, I can certainly do that. If that's your information. We have some information. We do have Gary Lloyd, the Vice President of Operations as well, to talk at a minimum about the increment letter policy that Capsule follows, and that we expected to have in place and in fact was in place. But I'm gonna defer to you in terms of what directly, in terms of what much information you want to share at this point as it relates to things that transpired.
I think there's significant interest from the numbers you hearing about our comments in the letter as well as the policies that.
Sure, okay. So I'm gonna start first just with the inquiry, for Vasta about, and we'll pull that up actually. Well, actually, what I'm gonna pull up is the response, to the inquiry about what plans are in place. So there was an email that went out on the 19th. Where it is. Okay, we're gonna just blow this up, so apologize. Okay, so there was a question about what was being done, in terms of the addressing needs, and then we're gonna actually segue into having Deli elaborate on this. So there was a question about what measures are being taken in terms of preparing for the storm. The regional property manager, essentially talked about, essentially what the plan was, and then she attached, and I distributed that to the board, although she copied all of the board, the letter that talked about the freeze warning and recommendations, the requests being made to the residents to comply with such. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and just turn it over to Alan and talk a little about what that looks like, what that means, and we'll pick up from there in terms of what happened subsequently.
Good afternoon, everybody. So Capstone follows PAA and NAA guidelines on inclement weather. Part of that is they have an entire team of attorneys. They're constantly updating language and what should and shouldn't be done, during different storms. So our policy is to follow whatever, and in this case, we're in Texas, so we follow TAA guidelines on PA's guidelines on inclement weather is that you have people that are available to be on call, which we did. And during the storm and through Christmas, we had 3 maintenance guys working, plumbing company working, and a water extraction team working for all of the water. Patrick and I had been in contact. Even on Christmas, we talked. We had a member inside this office, Tess, continuing to work during that time, work through the holidays to try and keep up. Now, it's a lot of phone calls, so I hear where sometimes they're saying they would make a phone call into the emergency line and nobody would answer, but we were already on site, working through as many of them we could, getting through as many phone calls as we could, working with professional plumbers, working with extraction teams to handle any of the water that came up. Prior to the freeze, the maintenance team did go around. I want you to keep in mind that almost 50% of the property is vacant. So they did go around to all of the units. They turned on the water. For those of you that maybe have not been to Rosemont and know the configuration of the plumbing there, there's an outside water closet where the water heater sits. And then all those lines run up and over and back in, and they are not protected in any way by any kind of heating element. So a lot of the breaks that we did have, again, this time around, happened in those areas that are not protected and are very difficult to make sure that you can't keep them from freezing. If it gets cold enough, those lines are going to freeze. There's no good insulation or anything to keep them from happening that way. The other thing that we have in multiple units is we still have HVAC units that are down. And so there's no heating in some of the vacant units because we have HVAC units. Because there's a lack of money at Rosemont, we have not spent money on vacant units that didn't have HVAC before people moved in. So there are some units there that didn't have a way of being heated. So even though you're trying to drip the lines and everything like that, there's no heat in those units because the HVAC does. So We followed all the policies and procedures outlined in TAA. We had our emergency people, we had plumbers on standby, we had extraction teams on standby. We had our team on standby, we took the lines in all of the vacant units and had the heating going in all the units that were available. And we still had water leaks, but Rosemont wasn't the only one. Talking to other people in the industry, other properties that we manage, and even properties where people living in the units still have water freeze, even with lines leaking and everything like that. Again, we followed all the policies outlined in TAA. Fortunate that there were still leaks. Feel like we handled the situation the best that we could under the circumstances.
So, following up from the email that Ms. Kuiper sent out, on Wednesday, I think Ms. Whittingham called and asked about what that looked like and there were measures that we're putting in place. I reassured her that we were going to follow the process outlined and that I'd be in constant communication with the property management staff. And the fact that I was getting text every step of the way as it relates to that. On Thursday, I was forwarded this email. They said that they had prepped all the units for the freeze, which is what the plan was. This is the email I'm showing you here. It got forwarded to me saying that that the vacant units were prepped. And so that was forwarded to me on Thursday at around 6. On Friday, I think it was Ms. Prince called me Friday afternoon saying that there was an issue with 913, that the unit was coming from the unit above. I did call the real property manager. We got on a three-way call. With Naramisa. And she heard the details about things that occurred. It was my understanding they were, had the issue had been addressed. I had been getting on Friday night, it company was hired to go and take care of some of the units, some of the properties. The fire department said had been out and they requested that we have fire watch. They would give me sort of a breakdown night by night on the fire watch in terms of what had been being addressed. That's it from Rosemont. And then again, we had been in constant communication so on Wednesday, but yeah, but actually part of that. So okay, so I got a call asking about the status of on 10:48 on the 24th about the status of where things were. I tried to get an update and was able to get an update, I think, Saturday night. On Sunday, I did talk to property management staff. They said that the resident was with family members, was okay on that Friday, on that Sunday. But Monday, I did go out to the property. It's been about an hour and a half. I did go and visit, and we spoke for some time, along with Angel, the property maintenance supervisor. Okay. And we went and spoke with them. At that point, there was the items have been cleaned. They were going to be coming back later on to look at some other items. I got a text later on from them saying that the heat had been turned back on at the property, at the units. So again, I also, you can pull that one down. Also, so we did extend an offer to Travis to go to a hotel and, not the interest of really staying in the hotel. We're talking about being in another unit. And I think the concern was actually turning on the utilities at another vacant unit. And there was things that weren't really ready with the unit. So actually that wasn't something that was you know, what I mean, within the cards is something that can be turned around right away, so putting her in the same building, obviously, that's why we offered to maybe move her to a hotel, if she was not comfortable being at the site, or in the unit that she was. So I also got a call on the day before Christmas for a Roto-Rooter that they called, giving me our authorization to do additional work. And again, I had been in constant communication with them. I spoke to the chair about the concern about the emergency line, that it's not a live line, that it's a recording that sends a message to the maintenance folks, which may be problematic for some, because we all speaking to a live person. Which they need to be reporting with the hindsight retrospect, maybe something we think about in terms of how we look at the ability to know that people's needs are being responded to. But I do believe, I mean, there was a plan in place. I think, obviously we can think about how we look at things in the future if this were to come up again. But I do believe, I know that I personally did want to find out firsthand what things were going on. I did go out there the day after Christmas and spend some time looking at the property, and I did want to understand what the situation was like. And so, but I guess that's all I can speak to as it relates to that. I mean, this is, property manager, was hired to do the work. They were communicating me the work that had been done. I was able to see some of that actually firsthand myself, and everything else was correspondence. So, yes, sir.
So let's just do a little time check as the board. We are at 12:07. That looks a target of conclusion for around 1:10. So we have about 53 minutes of deliberation left. I think this is a significant item. And so I'd like to spend the bulk on it, reserve around 10 minutes to talk specifically about the routine and 10 minutes for business, and giving us another hour or so to talk about the general response. Anybody have any issues with the general response? Okay. So why don't we move into some questions? Let's move into questions from the board. Any feedback or questions you want to provide given the presentation?
Plans we have in place. And obviously it failed miserably. I got the first call about Mary's apartment from her neighbor. And I called Patrick because it was decent hours. I started getting texts 3 in the morning. This was morning about it flooding again. And they couldn't get a hold of me. Security tried to get a hold of me. And I said, call the fire department. They're gonna cut the water off. And that's how I spend my holidays. I'm not on payroll. I'm not getting paid for none of this. But I answered my phone, and I answered my face, and it takes Patrick at the beginning. Because that's what y'all are supposed to be doing. Y'all haven't been doing your job in Capstone from the beginning. We begged you, Patrick, not to hire Capstone. When the other have gone put on me after years, but you hired him. It has been nothing but a hot mess.
Very hard.
The whole time. And then you tell us a year ago, we can't afford to fight Capstone. These residents can't afford to keep going through this over and over again. And then they're neglecting their duties now. We're being sold, so we don't have to do things. People are texting me, calling me, we're only getting month-to-month leases. They can't do recertifications, so the recertifications are somewhere, and they're not doing recertification. The offices, again, they have their own hours. Come when they want to, close when they want to, don't answer when they want to. And these people have to go through this for another 3 months. Sheer insanity. That's insanity.
Somebody's got to give him, I didn't get a 7% raise. You did.
Hmm.
You need to earn it. I'm not getting a penny for anything that I do. I do this out of love for those people. Y'all got to get it together. I don't care if you're not gonna be there anymore, Capstone.
Hmm.
You still been paid for everything you did and didn't do. And the answer you gave today for what happened during this last storm, totally unacceptable. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. I'm ashamed of you. I'm ashamed to be on the board. And a lot of stuff that happened, I wasn't on the board then. I was sitting on the other side. You ought to be ashamed. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Director. And before we respond, let's get a sense of additional feedback or questions you might have from the board. Before we turn that something to the staff. Is there any other?
I don't have the specific interactions to report on, which is that you can close down. Thank you so much for being available and successful. Very responsive. Morning, 3 a.m. Is applicable, and I understand, I recognize it's uncompensated, and that's the issue. So I just want to say it's a real honor to sit here in this seat, to have this position, but it's also, so when you hear problems and issues that need to be addressed, it becomes incumbent upon us to do so. And I share with you that now that I'm on the board, and I may not have had the last 3 years of Rosemont to feel that we haven't done our duties, but right now is the key period of time. It's something that I think we really need to address and deliver, is how to keep the property as damage-free as possible to expedite, in other words, the sale, because we need this to go through. And also the unconscionable damage and harm to the tenants needs to be addressed. So what mechanisms, I would be asking the staff to be talking about what mechanisms to catch this before it's too late. I really don't want to see this sale go down the drain, and I really don't.
If you have some specific questions and direction, just as a overarching view. I personally, governance body, we have not put in great policies and direction to make it feel that we perform satisfactorily. And that is collective. And so ultimately, as one of the people who provides oversight, I accept responsibility. So I think part of what is frustrating, particularly for the tenant reps, is that in some ways for me, it is about falling short of my values. It's not my community. For the tenant reps, it is the friend. So it is very difficult to see that we fail. In my sense is we perform satisfactorily. The tools that we have, right, is we are not the appropriate to be micromanaging low deposits, right? It's very hard for us to do. However, we can ask that we have better policies and that we are thorough about removing all that wrong. Improve it for next, because chances are we'll have a few more of these events. Something that you said that caused me great consternation, because there's a lot of things like human performance that are challenging. The one thing that caused me a lot of consternation was it's external structure. But we say we don't have any solution. Is that just an external water pump, water heater?
Yeah, so every water heater at Rosemont sits in an outdoor closet. Now, it is protected in that there are four walls around it, insulation and everything, but then there are pipes in that closet. And even though they are, quotations, they're protected by what Texas requires as far as insulating pipes. When the cold gets down as cold as it is, it's hard for those pipes to survive. And so that has been traditionally in the prior storm and in this one where we saw failures. They're
And let me pause just in the interest of time, I'm trying to get better. I understand that. And the feedback I would provide to our EVP is that we want to create a culture of excellence in our operations. So we want to be able to look at this and say, well, fine, there's a 1%, 5% chance that in a freeze, there's no solution on earth that can solve this. But we want to get to the place where we have to, there is no solution on earth. I'm not confident that we have gotten to the place where we've truly explored everything that should be huge for us. It also is a deep concern to me, which is depending on the probability that you're giving me, it's basically like we're gonna sign up for these things that keep failing 2 or 3 times in the coming 2 months. And that's just a very frustrating prospect, particularly in us. So what I would say is the TA guidelines likely are not sufficient for recovery. The way that we implement the TA guidelines clearly did not work. The way we presented information about what did not work did not show me that we are thinking about how do we improve performance for the next. And that is something that our EVP is to work with in terms of the property manager to resolve. How do we have process improvement from this set of data and this performance to achieve satisfactory performance? And that is why in some of the correspondences we have with you, Mr. Howard, we're saying, what is our internal weather policy so that we have a virtuous circle of what did we do right? It wasn't 50 units, right, that had mentioned 13 outcomes. But something probably was done right. What I could learn from that, we obviously don't have completely satisfactory performance. We have identified at least one major significant permanent structural problem that we need a solution for. We want to kind of see the paper flow saying we are improving performance because we were going to have a property lease for 6 more months. Depending on how we do those 6 more months, potentially for longer. So the culture of process improvement we need to see. And I think one of the things that we wanted to work on is starting to put together policies. The second thing that I've heard a lot about is there is a sense from the community, and I think from some of us, that there's no accountability. And so in a lot of different places, in the private sector, right, you perform unsatisfactorily, you get it written up, but there's a strike, or you don't get your bonus. We need to have a policy in place so that when we can objectively say performance is not satisfactory, we understand what the consequences are. Because right now, we can't objectively say, you know, a policy performance is unsatisfactory. And even if you could objectively say performance is unsatisfactory, contractually, what happens? So what we need from the EVP is to help us craft a policy that allows us to understand how we're going to evaluate this significant increment weather moments and what satisfactory means and what happens if satisfactory is not met. I think that that will help us all feel like we are doing our best at the policy level to ensure that we're minimizing risk, given our constraints, given our resources, given the structure of the building. But I don't know if we're there yet. I think one of the things that, the frustration of Ms. Prince has about the situation, I have for myself at this moment, in the sense that we need to get to a place in the next month where we can say, here's how we measure performance, here's what happens if things go poorly, here are the economic consequences or other consequences if they are not satisfactory, and we have been fair because we've learned. Do you think that at Building 9, we did everything possible with the resources we allocated, which according to the emails is a visit to every unit? We did that visit to every unit, we did everything possible within our constraints to avoid two boilers bursting?
I believe that we did everything that we could to prevent those failures. Again, one of the things that we noticed when we took over a lot of the failures, so we had 123 catastrophic failures. We started looking deeper into what caused all those catastrophic failures. It was that over the years, when a water heater needed to be replaced, it was replaced in-house, which is common. But a lot of the protection for those lines had not been put back, so there had not been installation put back on some of those lines, which left it unguarded to water condition. So when we started putting back water heaters, one of the things that we did was make sure that the insulated lines were state code, it said that this should protect it. To answer your question, we did everything that we could. We did not want any more water. Regardless of what the, idea is here, we've only ever tried to do our best to keep things from the same.
Quick question as a landlord myself, is disconnecting the water heaters an option for avoiding this?
Not
That's
really,
fine.
because there's still water coming into the building on the cold water side, and so even if you unhook some of the lines, there's still gonna be some lines that are carrying
So
water.
just, I don't need to go, but this was analyzed as a non-go option, that would not help in this situation.
I don't know that we have the resources to try and go around and disconnect all of the vacant, or all the water heaters all together. I'm gonna give you another scenario for another group that we manage for a different town altogether. They have a policy as an ownership group for us to turn off the water to the building. So beyond what we do, if we manage for a group that has a policy in place like that, we follow that policy. So we turn the water off to the entire 264 units right before the storm hit. Storm passes. So a couple of things that happen there is you have to let the storm pass. So everybody is without water until the storm passes. The storm passed. We started the water back up again, and we had 18 catastrophic leaks. So what can potentially happen, and did in some of those cases, is water still sat in some of the elbows and things where water can and froze in those, and then we turn the water back on. There was a catastrophic failure in those pipes. I think it's very difficult to try and come up with a plan to keep any catastrophic event from happening on a deep freeze. Although I hear your point, Julio, on doing your best to try and again, we wrapped all the pipes for the state code. We've been working with the city, we've been working with independent inspectors to try and make sure that everything we put back would hopefully not fall.
I don't want to, I will just say this once more, because it's gonna be the expectation moving forward. I have this approach. We wanna see a culture of performance improvement. And so in the way that the incident has been presented, it is not saying, here's what we tried, and here's what we could try differently to avoid these issues. Here's how we could have maybe gotten a chance at predicting building 9. Well, they're on third floor, well, it's second floor, for hydrants. Here's resources that if you gave us, we could have cost effective. Here's a benchmark, you're kind of suggesting, which is, this is an acceptable loss given conditions. Even though I would, on a values perspective, disagree with you, at least that would suggest to me that we're thinking about how do we get to best performance given our constraints. And right now, what I'm not seeing is the virtuous cycle of data, evaluation, recommendation, permutation, data. This is simple. This is not very simple organizational practice. Applies to our various property management, definitely. You are getting some of the need, but our, in terms of the board, my expectation is the process of improvement is facilitated by our EVP. Secondly, related, there might be a situation, and I hope that you can hear this just to check. There might be a situation where, for reasons beyond your personal control, your organization might relax or needs to be experience more characteristics. And my expectation is that you put the policy in place, so you tell us what the policy is going to be, create those characteristics. Right now, I think what's frustrating to a bunch of us is if we were to deem this unsatisfactory, what happens? Does it trigger investment? Does it trigger sanctions? It's just sort of unclear what happens. And so it makes it very hard for us to feel that we are contributing to process improvement and then we're making things better for next time. We hear things like, well, we've got this hater box out there that is beyond the ability of human knowledge to properly weatherize. It does sort of make that sort of frustrating. So for February, I think we'll work in a committee process, the sub-forum process, to start creating policies, and that will help provide some additional guidance. I do want to reserve some time to talk about just unit 13 of the status. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to the general. Just for all members, because I haven't heard much from you, Mr. Rogers, and Ms. General. Do you feel our performance was satisfactory at Rosemont over the winter period? You do not. You feel the performance was satisfactory? No. So you have a sense of where the body is. I will decide in terms of, my particular view. I'm willing to be persuaded that given the conditions, given resources, given blah, 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 in the universe of performance, we did great. But the way that the data was presented to me, basic intuition, seeing kind of the agency, the board members that are uncompensated, I'm not convinced. So it will be important as we institute hopefully a performance focused culture around property management and other aspects that we are better able to tell the story. For the seeds of that, we were saying, given the constraints, given how poorly we did in 21, we did much better this time. Let's get more rigorous about that so that the next 2 or 3 times we have to deal with this winter, we can tell that story to ourselves, to the public, and be a little bit more. That's what I'd like to just move to a brief discussion of unit 19. What is the status of unit 19? What are we going to do? I will say that we've heard of the testimony and I also had the opportunity to talk to the tenant, and as you may know, she's interested in staying on the premises and they can do that. She's also interested in some compensation for the construction.
So one of the issues that we face and have faced for a little while now is we're not allowed to move residents to other units under the restrictions that we have from the city. They have granted us couple of times now, emergency, you know, so. I know that my team started visiting with them to see if we could, you know, agree to a location to move to that. That's kind of our first step, is we have to get the city to authorize us, because otherwise we can't get utilities done. So it's not where we don't have the city, you know, that's keeping us from leasing. We can move people. In this particular case, we don't have a way of turning on utilities unless we get the city's authorization, so. That's what
I mean, my recommendation, if, depending on the substantive nature of what we think needs to happen, I wouldn't recommend. I would not recommend the notion of having, I mean, despite the fact that because of the code violation, we can't move someone, we can't utilize any vacant units, and you all are aware of that already. Yes, we talked about this, the code violation, we have, in some
It's not
cases,
leasing a
there's a.
unit, it's a lie, that's not what code is saying. We can talk to code. I'm just, it's very frustrating.
Okay, so my understanding is we can't rent any vacant units because of the number of code violations, if I'm correct. So as it relates to emergencies, let me just finish my thought. I know people are shaking their heads in disbelief, but let me just complete my thought. What I'm suggesting is, because of the extent of the work, you know, I don't think it would be appropriate to try to accommodate someone in a unit without all the necessities and amenities that you would expect to have in a unit, depending on how long it will take to do the work. I prefer to put her, you know, I know that obviously there's a situation related to transportation and like, we probably would work that out. But I prefer to put her in a situation where there's a furnished unit, where the things are there, we can make sure that all those things being met, versus having them in a unit and having them traverse back and forth, looking at the work being performed, or whatever the case is. I don't know that that's necessarily beneficial. If we're talking about moving some of their personal items for a temporary period, moving them back. I think that some of their damage, we need to figure out the assessment of that. I just think that that wouldn't be an idea. That wouldn't be my recommendation to do such, you know what I mean, for that reason. I mean, I think if we feel like we need to address the need to temporary house someone, putting them in a vacant unit, it sounds like a novel idea, but I mean, there's a lot of things that need to go on, depending on how long that takes and the means of being reasonably accommodated in a vacant unit. You don't have a refrigerator, you don't have a washer and dryer, you don't have a stove, you don't have furniture. We've not done it. I mean, I'm saying, and so I know this is frustration about what was said. I'm saying, I'm speaking of the code violence. I mean, yes, maybe in a sense of emergency. I'm saying suggesting emergency or not, I don't think it's a good idea. That's what I'm saying. That's why code violations aside, the ability to move or not move, my recommendation would be not.
Well, if your recommendation is significant, for the following two reasons. The tenant has had a bad experience with being, help me out, has had bad experience not being in a hotel setting. The tenant is very attached to the community and the facility type, and rehabilitation might take some time. And so there's a part where I understand operationally the point that you were making, but it is the preferred remedy. And so, and the remedies that you're providing don't seem like reasonable substitutes. And so we're sort of in an impasse. Ultimately, as the operator and the person on the ground is, we try not to micromanage, and that we were talking about a specific unit, as you know, as a many of them. But part of what we want to get to is to a consistent approach to resolving these kind of pieces of feedback from the community in a way that is, and this is sort of the where does the tenant go? That's different from the conversation which we'll have to settle. Like, where does the tenant go?
Let me.
Well, I'm gonna defer to the board. I mean, I just, they offered mine.
But you, in the past, we've had that happen. Some tenants have moved to stay with relatives while the place was, that may be a possibility. Just throw that out. And you're not showing them that, or they don't think that they should get it. That is resolved, but if there was a place for that. Let's, person will say that their child or sister or brother or whatever situation. Or if you're not able to stay in a hotel or don't want to stay in a hotel, that's an option.
That doesn't seem like it's an option, is what the family do.
Well, that's it. So,
I hear you, sir. I hear you. And I did somebody else, I feel there was another hand over here on the side.
It's still operationally not possible, it's more difficult. As much, she did this twice, do this for, and now again, 3 times for the holiday. But I don't care if it's convenient. Do what's best for her, even if it's stuff you don't want to do, even if it's a little bit hard. They deserve that. She deserves it. She's an old lady. She's an old lady. She's not younger. She can't bounce back on weekend. She can't be in unfamiliar places. And relocation was a nightmare. I did.
Definitely.
Don't ask her to do it again. Just do what she asks.
Period.
She's not asking for millions. She's not asking for stuff that's millions of dollars and expensive. It's just the right thing to do.
Well, as you can see, Mr. Howard, the board is not taking action and giving you a specific recommendation on what to do on 9/13. I think you're getting a sense of the consternation that we have. I would like to hear from you, consistent way forward for dealing with these challenges, since we are likely to face them again. I'll give our performance track record additional whether we've had that transaction close for a while. I think the only thing I will say is we want to be consistent, because we do not want to get into accusations of favoritism or hypocrisy and consistency. So it does seem like we would need a formal policy on how we're handle these kind of irrigation requests at Rosemont. And it's a complicated issue.
Yeah, and you'll beat the horse, and a lot of this problem is solved by us. When you go on before the code committee and speaking out against property, knowing that the property is 30 years old and it wasn't built to the standards that they're building today. A lot of these legal partners didn't happen. So there has to be some consideration and there has to be some give and take. So the choices are simple. Move to an apartment, move with relatives, but code enforcement, unless you can get an emergency exemption, then that's the third choice. We only got third choice. Right. So what do you want to do? The tenant doesn't want to move, don't want to. So then those, what do you want to do? You give direction.
The chair of Patsy would like to say something, and if it's allowed, I would like to let her provider suggest. Go ahead.
Frank, I think the only thing that I want to caution you about as well is liability for the individual that reside in the unit while it's being prepared. So there is a risk associated with that as well that will heighten the liability of the board if that were to happen. So if there's anything, if there's an injury, if there's an accident, if there's anything that's associated with that. So I would say that should be taken into account as well, right? Because it's more than just the individual that you're thinking about, that should be considered. right? It's the liability of Travis County that should also be considered.
Is that an argument for hotel or an argument for, putting her in a vacant unit?
It is a recommendation for consideration of whatever the decision is that you take into account, that there is a liability if the person were to remain in the unit while it's being reviewed.
You know what fiduciary means?
You as a graduate, you'll stand for this. I'm not sure.
And so we all have a fiduciary responsibility, not only to the resident, but also to the taxpayer. And so we need to step up and sometimes it may not be beneficial, in what the representative like Ms. Brown just pointed out, you know, that's a liability to which we call it fiduciary responsibility. So the only recommendation that would be clear is to relocate to either another apartment complex and another hotel. But that's, you can't match unless you can get an emergency release from the state. And that's something.
I have a text right here from the Assistant Director of Code who says there's not a problem with moving. I'm happy to enter that into the record or whatever you want, but, and that also it says that code does not prevent utility turn on. So code's not involved in that, so that directly contradicts that statement. So just to clarify that, I know I can.
Especially if. Because I understand the public policy, what we do in this situation. Our job is to set policy. So we've heard, I think, enough to know that for February, we need your recommendation of what we're going to do consistently and why. That's what we were going to do in this situation. That said, it's very important that we hear what the community is saying, and why they value staying. Because none of the recommendations that you make in February for the policy that we follow, that's not. What you're hearing, right, is certain situations, let us go. Certain situations, people need to be able to connect to it. It's not our job to case by case. I think we all really get frustrated. Don't have to weigh the mutual interest, including our fiduciary duty, to protect our rights in Travis County. What I'm looking for, what I'm hoping we're going to do more of this is formal policy that we develop thoughtfully on the days that we apply consistently. Then we get into lots of this jam. And if it's unpopular or hard, I think all of us are committed to the mission and understand the responsibilities. And I think we're going to leave it here. We work through the policy, we figure out how we're going to deal with the situation. So we're going to have fun. Okay, that would be my recommendation. That would be kind of what we would.
It also should come in the form of a direction.
Yeah, so we'll adopt. We'll have a resolution for action. And we'll pass.
Give a direction as to, you know, which way it's set parameters.
We're asking the staff with their professional knowledge and the fact that they're going to implement it to give us a recommendation for a policy.
The staff gave the recommendation from other items, and you like to give the direction.
So that is the prerogative, and I will continue to do that if necessary. And then, all right, I think that concludes our discussion on 9:13. So to make sure that we.
So, Mr. Chairman, I do hear what you're saying. I mean, obviously this needs some immediate attention. So I'm not sure. So, I mean, despite, I understand the part, the fair housing requires you to be consistent about how you apply these standards. I mean, absolutely, you can't assume that you will accommodate one and not other in those cases. So it makes absolute sense. And my suggestion earlier wasn't because of lack of ease, it was because my concern was being able to accommodate someone fully, given the situation of wanting to be in a situation where, in a place where all their needs would be met in a housing unit. So, I mean, I feel like it probably got misconstrued about what the intention was as far as what will happen, you know what I mean? Because depending on how long someone's out of there, you know, we talk about how you will accommodate them reasonably in a situation and feel comfortable being in a spot, right? They want their bed, they want all these things. So that being said, if we're talking about relocating the individual, the work needs to be performed now. So, I mean, the idea of making that happen needs to happen before February's meeting in order to develop a policy. So are you otherwise need to take care of the situation as I see best, and then you come back with the policy, or today we need to decide on maybe some guidance as relates to the issue, and then assuming that some policy will mirror that in terms of what we should adopt, because obviously there's an immediate need to address the issue and not, you know, a month from now. So I mean, I just want to know what you're asking me to do. What are you directing me to do, like tomorrow, the next day, because this is something that needs to happen. Sooner versus
You would
later.
like us to, you want the board to like to do it this specific?
You know, sometimes it's either, because I mean, that's what I'm asking, because there is more immediate, it's immediately. So I'm asking for some, yeah, interim guidance specifically as it relates to the situation.
What is their current policy?
For relocation? Well, it's,
What is their current written policy?
strategic housing finance company doesn't have a written policy. We defer to the capstone, each property management policy, so we don't have.
So then let's do the benchmark. What does Patsy do? They
Me.
face this situation? This has to do with the business.
The housing authority in Travis County, that's,
What do they do when they face a situation? Like that?
it depends.
Do they have a written policy?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we have a number of vacant units, so we have the ability to move people into the units temporarily. As far as that much we can, on every family property.
So I think that the challenge is, I'm not sure if everybody feels comfortable telling you to do this. We want to be able to do it consistently. We get into trouble when we do things consistently.
Right, but if you don't like the outcome, then we're back at the difference.
If you
So
don't,
this is an issue, I'm saying, we're here now.
we don't like the outcome. Okay, part of our evaluation process, that was part of how we shape policy moving forward. There's a lot of outcomes we have not liked, and we are going to fix them in a way that is appropriate for our line. I think that the reason you're hearing this tone is one of the significant pieces of feedback we consistently get is don't be case by case minded.
Right, but you have a,
Let me just
you have a
finish my
current
statement.
situation, that's not, sir, if I may, that's not exactly what's happening. If we have a situation currently right now, right, if it may, we spend some time talking about it, if folks are so inclined, because you want this person's need to be met in an adequate way. I mean, that's what I understand, and so I'm saying we're gonna formulate a policy based on the feedback we're hearing, but if we want to get it right, and this is the opportunity to do that, if we're saying that's what we want. So, I mean, you risk the chance of that not happening because you don't have the feedback of you all's input to really specifically refine and shape whatever it is we're talking about. But I'm fine with doing that. I mean, I'm not averse to the notion of moving forward. No, you don't want to do it case by case, but you typically take cases and you use that to build as a platform or framework for how you develop policy. I mean, that's how you typically develop policy. You have a situation and you apply a certain approach, and then if it worked, then you may form it, use that as a formation of future policy. I mean, that's at least my experience as it relates to those things. So that's what I'm saying. This is what I think this is, and that's all I'm asking.
Right, and this is an important case.
Right.
That we should use to formulate policy. And if you wish, we can go number by number, and they can tell you what they would like, and you want to say what the body would like.
That would be one.
Okay. So. From the left. Do you have a sense of how we should proceed on unit 913? What would be your preference?
I don't want to provide a recommendation. I don't have all the information. So I'm gonna-
As an emergency, and get them to allow them to do it. So they are like,
Given the nature of the, condition in 913, and the fact that it was an emergent situation with flooding, just covered under Texas property law as being potential for, I think there's a possibility to frame a policy and remain consistent in the future for attending to this and the 913 issue for immediate remedy into the setting for choice. Granted that we get some of these hearings that we saw in the town.
Mr. Romer,
No, I don't want to give direction in that regard, but I think this, Jan just gave it good guys, and I think that's what she wanted to do, to give directions and let them move with that direction. Not you set it up and then if you're not satisfied, I'm calling you. But you should never put an employee in that situation.
so
And so, give it good direction, and I appreciate you, Dan, for sharing that. And that was a good step. Thank you for sharing that. So that's one.
yeah, I concur. I'm between Mr. Roberts and Nasa, and that sort of I feel uncomfortable about from the dais giving this level of prescriptive direction. I don't want to be in the situation continuously. I think we all agree, and it's not good for you, not good for us. I think Janice put a good circuit breaker option and a path forward that could be part of a consistent recommendation we have moving forward. And that would be what we adopt as a policy in February or March, depending on when we're ready to do it. I will also add that in terms of like my process of evaluation of the EVP, because it is an individual case, and we are now tending to having formal policies in the event that in retrospect, we're like, wow, you got it wrong. It's not going to be a strike. It will be a, this is why it's important that we improve our process and make decisions. So in terms of that piece of the feedback, at least from where I said, it would not count as a failure. It will be a failure in there. We have this happen over and over again, and we have not adopted the policy that gives us a sense of what we can consistently propose and how we address communication. I hope that guidance is specifically there. And I do hope that by February, we'll be in a situation policy. I hear you, Mr. Howard, and how frustrating this can be. And I hope that this conversation leads to a reserve growth on all of our part on the data in terms of how to use this moving forward. With that said, I'd like to move quickly to item 5, new and unfinished business. So you are going to all get a copy of this issue tracker. And that the real-time issue tracker that I am going to keep track of so that you have a sense of all of the different issues that are open. And one of the things that we will do when we get to the site and our meetings is kind of prioritize what we need to be working on. Some of them will fall through the meeting, some in between meetings. I know that there are probably some part of this meeting that are immediate importance, like the phone service bills. Obviously, this relocation policy. Are there other new items that you would like to make sure are included as moving forward in the district for you? Any other new business? Okay, so let me recite to you kind of some of the items that are on this list, and I would appreciate hearing from you all which one might be
We can raise, let's go on.
Okay, I'll send you. So, some of the items that I think, might be of importance, immediate importance, include our inclement weather policy and our property manager performance policy. Does that seem to align with some of these? Take on quickly? Are there any other good items besides those two and the conference communication that you think we take on for experiments? I know in the past there's been.
Perhaps, that. For. And that's a lot to handle all these things, but we can get on this.
Yeah, the financial stabilization plan. It's a little bit. Yeah, but that.
I'd like to. Recommend that, part of that.
Yeah.
Visions.
Any other big priorities that you think we definitely have to get in the government?
You, the president, you and the vice president, can set the agenda. It's your responsibility.
Of course it is. I think one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure we.
Inclusion.
Okay, there are no additional items. I think for February, some of the things we want to work on are cost service bills, relocation policy, financial stabilization plan, our inclement weather policy, and the property manager performance policy. Obviously, we'll be in further communication about what we want to plan in February. That seems to be a pretty good workload. Are there any items that you anticipate, Mr. Howard, that we will want to? Pretty full plate, right? All right. I think that concludes this meeting. Again, thank you for this opportunity to provide this leadership to our body. This is going to be very productive here. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor?